Prep is something that most GMs do in some form or another. But honestly, most of the time when I prep, it's just me taking a 5-minute walk out in nature and muttering to myself like a crazy ttrpg maniac I am. But there's this giant misconception that GMs have to take huge amounts of their life and devote it every week to crafting every last detail that goes into a session. And where some GMs do that, I think it honestly scares a lot of people away from GMing, keeping them in this loop of always looking for a game but never having someone to run it. But I'm going to show you what you really need to sit down and finally start playing with your friends and get you past that misconception that you need to have everything prepared. And special thanks to Enclave for sponsoring this video. This video isn't going to tell you how to be the best GM, but how to do it in a quick and easy way that's approachable. A common thing many GMs do when they start is overprepare and overcomplicate things. They literally become that idea we have about GMs constantly overworking, feeling like they need every little detail, but I promise you that you only need a couple categories of things. The first is plot, and this is probably what you'll think of first when creating a campaign, for most people at least. Now, not all campaigns need a plot, many exist without them. However, I love plots, and I think having a plot helps add intrigue. Whether you decide it's a bunch of mini-plots or one big intertwining one is up to you. Either way though, the key feature that make a good plot for a tabletop roleplay game isn't actually determined by the story at all. It's your ability to keep it vague and fill it out as you go. You should have a general idea of where the story is going, but nothing should really be set in stone. This is what makes players feel like they make impact in it. Because they are. Plots aren't something to be pre-written, it's something to discover along the way, for everyone involved. To write my plots, I separate things out into acts. This helps me with pacing in a long campaign. I will have a general idea of what happens in the last act, aka the finale, and then I will only really plan the first act out. And remember, when I say plan, I mean I'm keeping it really vague. I write down things like, by the end of the first act, my players will know the bad guy exists. The bad guy will be trying to kill my players, and the players receive the first of the 5 legendary artifacts that affect the end fight. It's that simple. Of course, I might need to write down a bit on who the bad guys are, but even that I let evolve with the story, letting both my players' actions and the things I add into the game later dictate the plot. This spreads the work out and stops you from having to rewrite 10 million times, or worse, accidentally railroading. Now, you might be wondering, what if my players don't follow the plot at all? What if they go off on a side tangent? Well, the thing is that I always try to make sure to do is to make almost all the plot points not linked to places for the most part, or be received in a very certain way. If you notice, my free example plot points could be anywhere, at any time, during any event. This allows flexibility, and will let your players think that they just happen to be choosing the right things, even if all they're choosing to do is go shopping. Because nothing screams you're not safe from the villains like trying to assassinate the players at the market. But what if I don't even want to make a plot? Well, today's sponsor might be the perfect fit for you. Enclave is a game designed around narration and creativity still, where the story matters most. However, it's made intentionally using one-shots, so the conduit, the word for GM in this game, don't need to think about big plots. And this has a fantastic upside of making scheduling incredibly easy, allowing you to bring in any of your friends to the game for one-off sessions or the long haul. Not only that, but the rule set is so simple that the game is perfect for new GMs trying to look at being a conduit, Or for people trying to rope in friends who have never played a ttrpg before, this game is extremely fun for both experienced roleplayers and new players alike. My group played a session led by the game creator as our conduit recently, and we had an absolute blast. So check out the link in the description to back them on Kickstarter, where they're releasing an updated rule set and a new expansion, Aspirant. And if they reach their stretch goal, they're giving us an additional 25 more classes. 25! Yeah, that's crazy. And I personally really want them. So I hope they'll be able to reach their goal, but let's get back into how to actually take on that conduit or GMing role. Now, location. Settings can be truly inspiring for some, like me, who just love thinking about the endless mountains full of glittering jewels and ashy deserts with burning hazes of chemicals that sting the population's nostrils. Oh wait, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, but for some it's a minor thing. And all you really need here is a general idea of where the campaign takes place. In Enclave, each session may take place in a completely new area if you want, making it completely refreshing to play in. In our session, we went to a Victorian mansion with a massive garden in the shape of a chessboard with a little bit of steampunk flair. But if you want some semblance of an overarching world setting for your manifold, coming up with a couple rules for your world will make it unique and noticeably unified. For example, you could make a large underwater tunnel that connects the world, bringing in dangerous black mark products to every waking crack of the planet, making your Enclave missions even more dangerous with exotic potions everywhere. But if you can't think of anything, the organization Enclave already has some built-in rule sets to keep the game feeling unique and connected despite the varying locations. Starting with your badge. Imagine this like the badge in Star Trek, teleporting you to your mission, but also used to request early escape and be teleported back to safety. Though that escape takes some time before it happens, so the players need to plan wisely. Where rules can keep the manifold feeling like they belong together despite differing locations, thematics can keep each mission location feeling rememberable. If this sounds intimidating, however, it's often really easy to come up with a thematic for a location if you just pick a word to base the place off of. Once again, Enclave is on point here, having your players give you up to 6 words to inspire your mission, making your job even easier. In our game, we gave our conduits the word hidden, lattice, and curious. This inspired the conduit to make the chessboard-like garden using the word lattice, and curious made them think of Sherlock Holmes, theming the time era to Victorian times and inspiring the mansion, where hidden affected the hook of the session. Where in another world, maybe you have a city and you use the word glider. This might mean that the major transportation within the city is done through the air, climbing large spires before gliding through the air on large kite-like structures to your next location. One simple thematic for a location can make it feel rememberable and inspire your players on how they might use it when taking on their mission. We know where we're at, and we know what we kind of were doing in the long run. But now we have to do the part we all dread. Sitting down and create a session. But put that pen down and stop thinking about all those descriptions and possibilities and take a breath. There are many ways to write a mission, but I'm going to show you the simplest, quickest method I use. Seriously, sometimes I go into sessions 5 minutes after thinking and writing 0 things down, and my players are never the wiser. There are 4 things that you should be thinking about if you need them, and sometimes the players will even do them for you. We need to think about where we want the story to go. How are we advancing the plot? Are we advancing the plot this session? Not every session really needs to advance plot, but making sure it is advancing most of the time if you have one will help with the pacing of the game. Now, in this area, I'm normally 1 step ahead. I'm not thinking about this session I'm thinking about next session's plot. This allows me to link them together easily. Next up, we need a mission briefing. This is your hook, the general story for your session. You don't always have to come up with these on your own though. You're welcome to ask your players what they want to do, at the end of a mission or before session. Then we throw a wrench in the plans, creating a difficulty for your players to solve to get from point A to point B. This can be with their minds or their weapons. And this is honestly the hardest part to do right. You want to play around the strengths of your party and give each member a chance to feel strong. But once again, Enclave coming through big. The game designers literally tell you what each class excels at and how to make them feel strong as a conduit running the game. Finally, we might need some hints on the ways we can guide our players if they get stuck chasing the goal. So, in Enclave, we skip step 1 and move directly into step 2. In our recent mission in that Victorian mansion, our hook was that Katlia, the owner of the house who had died nearly a decade ago, had left a treasure behind in the gardens. But our conduit gave us a wrench in the plan. 2 families were fighting over this treasure in a bit of a firefight. So, to get that item, we would have to rid ourselves of these treasure hunters. Now, finally onto hints and basically the content of the session. We had clocked that the garden was a chessboard. That was hint 1. And that Katlia was an avid chess player as well as a florist. That was a hint 2. Sneaking into our old room, we found a scene playing out. 2 ghost images playing a game of chess, until a illegal move was made and 2 figures broke out into a fight. That was hint 3. Searching the room more, we found her diary and was able to communicate with her using it. Learning that she just wishes she could have put that man in his place and beat him in chess without him cheating. And that was hint 4. And with just these hints, we were able to realize that we needed to play the game out in the garden, without the cheating move. And I'm gonna be real, I think our conduit just made these hints up on the spot. And if you're able to do that, then you can just skip this step as well. Pre-made hints are only super useful when your players feel stuck, and you aren't yet quick on your wits to make them up. But depending on your friends, you might need them often, or sometimes even never. Friends are often so fantastic at making the game easier. And Enclave knows that your friends make the game easier, and that it'll help the conduit out. So they even made a mechanic called pitches. Pitches allows your players to suggest something to happen in that game that's not even necessarily in their character's control. That's right, your players in the game literally help you run the game. So back to our mission. After we had figured out what needed to happen, I asked, can I change my voice to one of the men out front using magic? And this small pitch was allowed. As I used my abilities to pretend to be one of the families outside, I convinced all the baddies to run to the front of the house to buy us some time. But as I did, my powers began to overload. My character began to lose sight of reality, becoming entranced in the idea that she is embodying Katlia, all fears and reality of the situation fading around her, her mind focusing in only on the game of chess, as gunshots drifted out of reality, and this is where I made my coolest pitch. I requested if I could commune and communicate with the dead, Katlia, to become one with her for even just a moment, to understand what she wanted, to understand why her treasure was hidden. And my request was granted. In no other game have I ever seen a rule allowing players to be able to ask an NPC to have a certain reaction with them. And to me, that's so cool and helps relieve some of the work for the conduit. This game seriously makes GMing so incredibly easy. But what if you have your manifold, or your world, or your 4 points and the session, but oh no, that panic is starting to take a hold, and you don't feel like you are ready. Take a deep breath once again. The truth is, for most game masters. They'll have a bumping start at the beginning. But that's alright. Players are incredibly unpredictable, and this can cause a lot of things to go astray. But in my experience, they are also incredibly kind and helpful. If you need a moment to come up with things, that's okay. Call a 5-minute break. And note down everything your brain kind of stalls on and can't come up with on its own. For me, it's names. I need a list of names to pull out of. For others, it might be a location, where having a photo of a place might make it more helpful to describe. But the only way you'll truly learn what you have issues coming up with on the spot is not to over-prepare. It's just to let it happen, and then learn from it. Learn to trust that you can improv. And after all this, if you still don't feel like you're ready, you should check out Enclave's Discord. Seriously, I've never seen a server with so many games and people willing to take in random players to absolutely free games. I'll link it in the description as well. And if you've stuck around to this point, tell me what's gonna be your next mission, or your first, and have a fantastic day.